through PropTech companies in India of late have made quite some noise. Where are you currently with your IPO plans?
We started working on an agent productivity platform. So it's focused on making your agent more productive. That's the thought process behind Super Agent.
The escrow itself is maintained in a bank, so RBI regulated bank, SEBI registered trustee doing the entire administration.
If there's any dialogue ever done, currently or in future, with regards to real estate transaction space in the market, there's no way the name Square Yards is not being mentioned in that discussion. Square Yards has come a long way from where it started. The market, which was earlier dominated highly by the search platforms and had lead over more than a decade, Square Yards in the last 8 years has left all the whole competition behind and has embarked upon a journey to emerge into a numero uno player in the market by delivering the best marketing, a best home buying experience. Today, we have CTO Vivek Agarwal and the CFO Piyush Bothra from Square Yards on Let's Talk Business, where we talk about their journeys and the future moves. Welcome, Piyush and Vivek.
Thanks, Kritika.
So, Vivek and Piyush, could you tell us the journey from where Square Yards started and how was the first 2 years of Square Yards?
So, Kritika, we started in 2014, and in fact, even the start of the journey is a bit of an interesting piece, given that none of us we were even planning to be entrepreneurs, especially some of the founders who started initially. And the idea where it germinated was we got a lot of exposure to the international market, especially China, and when we looked at what's happening there vis-a-vis what's happening in India and some of the players there in terms of the kind of scale and the size they have achieved, and that's what interested us, saying that we are talking of here in India the largest segment, one of the largest industry, and largest player has got no size, basically massively fragmented, no real inroad being made, and that's what excited us, that it's probably one of the last billion-dollar bastions which are yet to be conquered, and that's what kind of excited us, and that's how we entered. And obviously a lot of learnings through the journey. I think the biggest learning for us was we needed to unlearn a lot, especially as we built the team. The first port of call is obviously go to the market, look at people who are from the industry, bring them on board. We realized that there is a massive amount of unlearning to be done before we can get to what we wanted to create as Square Yards culture and the DNA. So that's how the journey started.
So, how, Vivek, was the first 2 years of when you guys started Square Yards? Were there any challenges you faced earlier?
Yeah, so as Piyush said, the first 2 years were actually spent on unlearning. So we had a lot of guys from the market hired. We started doing primary transactions first, both in India and overseas. So we initial 2 years were spent on building the distribution network, especially in markets like Dubai, in markets, key markets in India. And as we expanded, we realized that although our business is growing, we were building our distribution network. But in terms of the kind of business that we wanted to do, it's still not there. Because there are a lot of malpractices in the industry. A lot of developers, they went back on their commitments. So a lot of these things we learned in the initial years, and then we came to a playbook that this is how a primary business has to be run. So I would say that the first few years were just learning about the industry, unlearning, then learning again.
And a lot of us, Kritika, are, as in the top senior management, largely is not from real estate space. Financial services is what most of us have cut our teeth on. And also one thing, at least we were clear from day one, that the business we wanted to build was not another classifieds business. That was one thing which we were very clear from day one. and we knew that classifieds business has its glass ceiling in terms of the market size it can capture, and that's where we said we have to go after the transaction. um, and yes, 8 years into it, we know it has been much more difficult to build transactions, and I think that's where we feel that it was the right decision to take, not just from the market size perspective, that how large we can make it, but the kind of moat we have created, because running a hybrid model, which is a full stack model, is, and replicating it is significantly more difficult than replicating a classifieds, pure classifieds play. And I think that's really how one, I would say, the initial key decision which has turned out to be very good for us.
So Piyush, one interesting thing that you guys mentioned, that you guys were not from the real estate background, and I've noticed between two of you earlier, before the Square Yard journey, you both were in the corporate world, and then you guys had your own company. How this shift happened? Like, what triggered you to embark on the entrepreneur journey?
You want to go first? You've been the entrepreneur all along.
Yeah, so I worked for companies like Intel, Nokia, and Accenture, all big corporates earlier, and I was a typical corporate guy till 2012 or so. And then in 2012, the real estate was at its boom. So I and my co-founder Hitesh, we flipped a few properties, and we realized that we're making the biggest investment in your life, and then you are actually getting no research, no services around it, right? So if you buy a 10,000 rupees smartphone, you get a whole lot of data, insights, reviews, all sort of insights about that product. But when you're making the biggest investment, you are not getting anything, right? You're just buying on either a broker's advice or your own gut feeling. We sat down on this problem, and we started our first company, which was called as Realizing.in. So we started building a lot of data insights around real estate, around projects. So we gathered around like 200 data insights about the projects, things like connectivity, livability, lifestyle. And we built our portal, and then in 2015 we merged with Square Yards. Square Yards was very focused on real estate sales. We were focused on tech, so that was a perfect marriage, and that's how we became part of Square Yards.
Yeah, in fact, the entire tech which we have today is thanks to us getting Vivek and Hitesh on board. So we did have started some bits on the tech, but I think we took a quantum leap once these guys came on board. So it's been one of our best decision of bringing them on board. So coming to my journey, post my MBA, I was in financial services space, wanted to do investment banking. More so, also I come from a family background of being in business. So the bug about doing something on my own was always there. It's just that got into some bit of comfort zone with my investment banking job, and then did that for a few years. But at some stage, then I felt that now the timing was right, and seeing a lot of people starting and growing, etc. So that's when I took the plunge. It was 2014 again for me when I took the plunge on entrepreneurial journey. Nothing related to real estate. It was into a food tech space. Ran that startup, goes by the name RealtyNXT. Ran that for almost a year. Not a very successful decision for me, as in few shortcomings in probably how we looked at the space and decided to fold it up. And Tanuj, who had by then started Square Yards already. So Tanuj and me, we were batchmates from our B school days, and when I decided to shut down RealtyNXT, we got in touch, and he said, as in, we need you here, and that's how it started. So there I am at Square Yards. It's been 7 years plus now.
That's good to know. Vivek, you mentioned about realizing.io, because I wanted to know, I saw realizing.io website is pretty much live and kicking, but it's been powered currently by PropVR. So what's the strategy behind this?
Yeah, so we acquired this company PropVR a couple of years ago. It's a great company run by Sundar and Sheena, which is into advanced 3D and AR visualization on real estate. So while we are looking at Propria, there are three types of solutions here. One is targeted towards developer, which is like visualizing entire projects in a 3D environment. The second offering is focused on agents, like how do we improve productivity and provide agents more tech power to do their own marketing. And the third was a services component. So we were looking for a good name there. Services like doing virtual staging, doing 2D to 3D creation. So there is a huge market, especially in North America and Europe, about these services. So we re-christened realizing into that, and we are going into these markets. Still early days, but we are very bullish on it.
So Piyush, the escrow service that you have started, could you give us a bit of about the offering of the service and how it benefits the users?
Again, drawing again from our international experience, it's a very common service globally that the brokers, they will maintain a trust account which is regulated, audited by the regulator, and any transaction which happens, money first goes into the trust account. The parties, they don't exchange the money. So the brokers or entities like those becomes the trustees or the managers of that money, to ensure that only once a transaction is properly completed is when the money is exchanged hands. Unfortunately, in India, we never had anything like this. So if you're buying a property, you are left to the mercy of the person you're buying the property from, because you'll pay a lot of amount upfront, and we are talking, these are large sums. You're doing a property transaction of 50 lakh or a crore, you might end up paying 10-20 lakh before even the property gets registered in your name. So you are entirely at the mercy of the party on the other hand. That's where we thought we need to bring this as a service. It's a complete digital service backed by an escrow, managed and administered by a SEBI registered trustee. So the escrow itself is maintained in a bank, so RBI regulated bank, SEBI registered trustee doing the entire administration. The whole process is online, wherein the buyer, the seller, and even their agents, the buyer agent, seller agent, they all get involved. They will set the rules of when the money will be transferred, how much will be transferred to whom, and we just manage the whole online process around it. So I think we see this as to be a massive game changer for the industry, because this will bring a lot more structure to the resale and the rental transactions, which unfortunately today are very, very unregulated, unorganized, left to the mercy, no transparency. So yeah, we are quite bullish about this service.
True. So how's the response been so far when you launched the service?
So it's still early days, I would say, and given it's a new service, it will take a bit of educating around it. But the broker partners who we work with, they have shown a very positive response to it so far. So the initial feelers from the market are pretty strong, and it also helps them secure their own brokerages. So that's where their acceptance for something like this is pretty high. And keeping our fingers crossed, we should be rolling in big numbers pretty soon on this service.
Great. So Vivek, I would first want you to help summarize all the initiatives which are technology-led, which is under Square Yards, and it gives an edge over your competitors. Also, in a nutshell, since everyone is in this space, working upon building an ecosystem of their own in this PropTech market, what are the different solutions are you providing in terms of home buying and the forward and backward integration under Square Yard?
Yeah. So Kritika, as I said, we started with primary market transactions. In the initial few years, we were just focused on that. And when we started looking at the market, and we looked at the adjacent spaces. So the first was very clearly mortgage space. People who buy homes, they take a mortgage invariably. So we ventured into that. Fast forward to today, we are one of the top 2 distributors of mortgage in the country. We are facilitating close to 1,200 crores of disbursements every month. Then after mortgage, we looked at what other services the customer needs. So we looked at rentals, we looked at property management, we also looked at interior space. And over the last 2-3 years, we have evolved ourselves to be a kind of ecosystem company, which is a combination of home buying and home ownership. So home buying is our primary, secondary, those kind of transactions, and home ownership is like rentals, interiors, mortgages, home loan, property management. So now what we see ourselves is we are actually a platform, and some of these capabilities we acquired, some of these capabilities we built in-house, but we are creating a platform where anything related to real estate gets solved here. And what it has done to us is that it has reduced our customer acquisition cost by a huge number. Like a guy who is buying a property, he's going to take a loan probably 2-3 years down the line. He's probably looking out to rent, or he wants to do home interiors, or he wants to put his property on the property management services. So all of these capabilities we built in-house, and we are probably one of its kind of platform in the world who is actually who has matured these different services over the years.
Because this kind of covers the entire customer life cycle on a real estate, and that's what we were focused on. So we started with one piece, but over the years we've added all the pieces around. And the beauty of the entire ecosystem play is this is not just India. We are now starting to replicate this entire play in Dubai as well. So it's a model which is not just that it's suited only for India. It's something which we know we can export to many other developing countries across the globe, where we can start doing this. Dubai always comes naturally to us given the amount of presence we have in Dubai all along. So that becomes our first market outside India to pilot anything which we do here.
True.
And that's only the B2C part. When we were looking at the value chain, so we looked at the stakeholders. Who are the other stakeholders in this real estate value chain? So we are developers, we are agents, we are banking and non-banking financial companies. So we started developing B2B solutions for them. So we now have very mature solutions for developers, say a 3D virtual sales platform. We have SaaS tools for agents. We have built digital journeys for banks to onboard, to get their sanctions digitally. So it's not only the B2C play, it's also the B2B play. And that gives us the power of integrating everything into a common piece.
True. So Vivek, Piyush, this leads to my second question is, when you're saying that you're going to acquire more companies and when you're going to provide more solution when it comes to home buying and for even the home seekers, don't you think the current market, the bigger players like you, even Square Yards and more other bigger players who are doing the same thing where they are creating this ecosystem where all the solution comes under their company, don't you think later on down the line there'll be competition just between the pricing, because the market will become narrow, and correct me if I'm wrong, there'll be only few key players later in this market. So later, how the differentiator would be? Would it be based on the pricing? Would it be based on the trust factor? What is your take on this?
So, Kritika, first thing is when you look at the space, while yes, as you rightly mentioned, a lot of the other players, especially the classifieds, they are trying to kind of create a full bouquet of service. But when you look deeper into it, you will realize that they are effectively still core to their business model, which is generate a lead, pass it on to someone to work on it. So even when they are creating a full bouquet of service of interiors or rental or whatever else or mortgage, they in effect are just passing on that lead to somebody else to work upon. And that's what we realized the biggest differentiator factor between them and us has been most of these services, rather all of these services, we control the entire service offering, we control the entire experience, and that's where a consumer is able to get a much more standardized experience which they are not able to get with others. So we believe this will be a huge differentiator. Secondly, also the market, beauty of Indian market is it's highly unorganized. Whatever sector you pick, it is fragmented, unorganized, which means there could be a long period of time before the organized players come to a size where they need to massively compete with each other. So, and given these, a lot of these are delivery services, right? They are not a service wherein it's a pure tech wherein you can capture a large market share right away. the market share gain always is much slower process in businesses like these. As in any segment you pick up, the largest guy, whether it is us or some other competitor, in whichever segment we are operating, the largest guy is hardly 2%, 1%, 3% of the market. So there is a huge room for everyone to grow. In fact, we always keep telling internally that it's better more people coming, because when you're trying to organize a market, you need more hands to be able to do it rather than one person fighting a lone war. So more the merrier. And we always say India is not a demand problem. India had been, even in the last 9 years, a supply problem.
So Piyush, the repo rate increments are growing concern for the current developers. In the coming months, what do you think would shape up for the real estate sales? Do you think the current hike by the RBI is going to affect the sales in the upcoming festivals? Of course, it's around the corner.
At least looking at the factors which we see on ground, I don't see this to be a dampener, at least for this festive season. A lot will depend on how RBI's rate movement happens over the next 6 and 12 months. Because from today where we sit, if there is, let's say, another movement upward which is less than 100 bips, I think the market sentiment is too strong. The demand is too strong to easily absorb that. Anything more than that, maybe it will start impacting the demand. Because if you see today, even today with all the rate hikes, the home loan rates are still sub 8%, which are still probably as close to the lowest they've always been.
Yeah.
So still the rates are not as high that it will significantly dampen the market. We are talking of practically for 9 years, we haven't seen any rate hikes, price hikes in the properties anywhere in the country. On top of that, the salaries, they have probably in the 9-year period with the average 10 to 12% hike which has been happening, they are more or less tripled or thereabout. So the affordability is pretty high. It's always people who have been sitting on demand, on the fence. And we always say India is not a demand problem. India had been, even in the last 9 years, a supply problem. The supplies were at the wrong side of the market, wrong pricing, wrong sizing. A lot of that has got solved, and that's where we are seeing a massive traction. So I would not lose my sleep over the repo rate hike, at least in the short term. And hopefully the inflation is looking to be tamed down. So we hope it's not a very hike, maybe 1 or 2 cycle max of another 35 to 50 bips kind of a hike. So we should be in a decent zone.
But Piyush, like in the current news, what I have seen is Noida Authority has increased the land rate from 20 to 30%, right? And it has affected the serious home buyers, because everyone knew Noida is your affordable housing community, or the place where a serious buyer will definitely purchase a house. And that has dampened the dreams of the serious home buyers. So what's your take on that?
I would say it was a very ill-timed move, to be honest. Of all the markets, and when we look at the year-on-year growth across cities, Noida has been among the worst performers. And it's a classic case of how the whole city has faced this trouble because of the wrong policies, the wrong execution which has happened. Maximum number of stuck projects are in Noida, or the extended part of Noida as a city. Maximum number of defaulted developers are there. So a lot of challenges were there in the market already. It was barely getting its feet around, and a 20-30% is a massive hike, which is going to have massive impact on the demand, because it was never anyway on the high side. But if you look at any other market, be it Mumbai, be it Pune, be it Bangalore, the amount of demand we are seeing is massive. Each of these cities are probably clocking their best ever monthly numbers month after month. So the demand is very high there. Thankfully, none of the developers have raised their prices in a significant way, and we hope no price hikes happen in a big way, because that can kill the demand, as we have already seen in Noida with any significant increase, because it's more important to drive the volumes. And that's where again it goes back to that, having these corporate houses who can who can take a more long-term view of the market rather than a very short-term view of that, okay, if I've sold 100 units, let me hike the price. So far, we are in a good space. All the participants have been behaving properly. Let's hope that continues.
So, Piyush, in continuation to that, which cities, according to you, in the primary market would you recommend our home buyers in terms of, purely ROI for when it comes to commercial, residential, weekend homes, plots? You got to name one city for each one of these verticals.
That's a difficult one, Kritika, because India is predominantly an end-use market today, for sure. The demand we see massively is by the end users, people who are going to live in those homes. So, and that's why most of the traction would be within the city, near to the office, which is what we are seeing. At least today, the second home or the holiday home is completely out of fashion. These are predominantly investor plays, and today India, I don't think, is in a stage where we will see a significant investor play happening. But within that, as in, there will always be opportunities to make ROI, and a lot of it always depends on what's happening at a micro market level. So if a particular micro market is seeing significant improvement in connectivity or massive economic activity, those always plays on the how the price hikes work in those markets. Like Gurgaon per se has not seen a lot of activity, but what has worked for Gurgaon, especially the outskirts, is a lot of connectivity projects which were stuck for a long time are getting delivered. Some have been delivered, some are getting delivered in the next 12 months. And these are helping the outskirts to start rise the prices to appreciate faster than the downtown is rising. Mumbai again seeing a lot of metro connectivity for the outskirts, the suburban. So that will help the suburban market to increase in prices, because what drives maximum is actually your commute time. It doesn't matter the distance, it's the commute time which matters. As long as that reduces. So for any buyer, I would suggest when they are looking at, they need to look at what's happening in that micro market and take a pick. Any city can be good and any city will be a bad investment decision, depending on what micro market, what project you picked up.
So if you have to tell three things they should look out for, like for example, infrastructure, development, government, upcoming projects. So what those 3 points would be in terms of if they are looking for the investment?
The one, if it's an end use, obviously it means vicinity to where you need to go, where the schools are, where your offices are, etc. But purely from an investment perspective, the biggest thing, as they say in real estate, is location, location, location. So infrastructure is what makes or breaks any location. That's what should be the highest factor one should look at. Within a project, what also matters is look at the brand of the developer, look at their delivery track record, because all of those are important. You don't want to get stuck in a project which will either not get delivered or get delivered with a very long time lag. So that's the two biggest factor, I would say, is one, location, and two, the project which you choose, the developer partner you choose.
So Vivek, we are hearing some noise around this new initiative you're going to launch soon about Super Agent. What is it about, and could you just share some bits and pieces or the key insights on this?
Yeah. So Kritika, as we were working with these agents, like all those 300,000 plus agents in India, we gained some key insights on how these agents work, what are the different tools that they need. If they want to put a daily post on social media, they want to create videos, they want to create engaging content. But these smaller agents, they have to either depend on marketing agencies or small time creative agencies for that. So we thought that probably a platform could solve these issues, looking at the kind of technology advancements that we are in. And we started working on an agent productivity platform, which is not a CRM, but it's focused on making an agent more productive, making him more marketable, making his brand position realize in the market. So that's the thought process behind Super Agent. And when we looked at the monetization part, we realized that India is still not that evolved a SaaS market as yet. So we developed specifically for overseas market, starting with Canada, then going into markets like Dubai, Australia, wherever we have presence, and eventually to North America. That's where we can monetize this platform. That's where there is a real need. If you look at markets like North America, they are close to 2 million agents, right?
Yeah.
And they are dependent either on their agencies or brokerages to provide these tools, but those guys, they charge a hefty amount to these agents. So we have done our market research. So we are going to launch this platform in overseas market as early as next week. So we are going to start with Canada, then we would go to Dubai and eventually Australia and North America as well. We are very bullish on this platform. I think this can become a huge business in itself. Eventually we'll come to India as well when we see that Indian markets evolving in terms of SaaS and being able to pay that kind of money. So that's our plan. So in the first year, we are targeting to acquire close to 15,000 agents on this, 15,000 paid agents.
Okay. So when you mention about tools, would we be seeing Prop VR also a part of it?
Yeah, some services of Prop VR like your virtual staging, your 2D to 3D creation, your making a 3D from a floor plan. So all those would be embedded into this platform. They are being embedded. Some part of the things that we have built for Square Connect, like your matchmaking, your listings, creating videos, brochures out of those listings, those are also being integrated. So it's going to be a mix of marketing and tech platform. And then maybe at some point of time, we will want to bring CRM also into it.
So Piyush and Vivek, we have introduced this new segment in Let's Talk Business. It's called Rapid Questions. Starting with you, Vivek, I would ask you a few questions. Please quickly let me know your answers so it can be fun and we can know more about you. So how would you describe your entrepreneurial journey in 4 words?
It's a kind of ups and downs, zigzag kind of journey. So I started in a corporate. Then my first company was in HR tech. Then I started into another corporate. My second company was into supply chain and reverse logistics. Then I went to Accenture as a corporate job, and finally I settled into real estate. So it's a kind of zigzag. Yeah.
Okay. So one mantra that you follow which applies for your personal life and career?
So one thing that I have always believed in is that when I manage my team or when I look at anyone, so I look at how likely is this person is going to take responsibilities and take ownership. So for me, ownership is the one thing that I personally believe in, and whenever I hire, I look for that ownership thing because people who demonstrate ownership, they become part of the company, they become part of the culture, and they are the ones who are going to take the company forward.
True.
So that's what I believe in, that's my mantra. Like.
So in terms of career, if I have to make you choose between these two statements, do what you love or love what you're doing, which one would you choose?
I would say I'm kind of workaholic, so I believe in both. Okay, sometimes most of the times we love what we are doing, but at some point of time you have to do what you love, right? So, for example, these SaaS initiatives, I love building a SaaS business from the start. From the very beginning, I had this thing in mind that we'll build a SaaS business. So it's like doing what you love. But all other businesses, building tech solutions for those is like love what you're doing.
Okay, the best advice that you have got from your mentor and you still follow that advice till now?
I think I had different mentors over a period of time, but what I realized, my biggest mentors are people like Piyush, Tanu, Jidesh, Kanika, these guys, and the best advice is that you don't when you're running your business or when you're doing something, first there's always a cost of running that business, right? There's always a tuition fees that you have to pay. So first few years is always a tuition fee where you learn and unlearn things, and then you are going to expand that business. So I've learned the most from these guys only.
So, what is that advice specifically?
So I think the advice is that don't be too serious,
Yeah.
right? When you're going to experiment, you're going to fail, and you're going to get up and then do that thing again. We have some businesses that we had to shut down. We had some geographies where we have to take back people, right? So it's always like fail fast and learn fast, and then build on those learnings and do that thing again.
That's a great advice. And what's the worst advice you have received?
I'll have to think about that. But I think when I was moving from my corporate career to doing entrepreneurship, so I mean, you meet different kinds of people, and I had experience of like not doing too well in my earlier startups. So a lot of people came, and then there are some people I won't mention, but they had this thing that this won't work. But I had that belief that probably it's not the first time, second time, it's the third time that I will succeed. So those are the, I mean, you can call them advices, you can call them like criticisms, but I would believe that those are things if I have taken that advice and not moved on doing the entrepreneurship thing again, I won't be here.
True. And if you had to pick, one option among the statement which I'm going to quote, that one option which you would choose or you feel would be a big game changer in the coming times: artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, fractional ownership, and blockchain.
I would choose blockchain and not cryptocurrency per se, because I believe that blockchain has the potential, and blockchain and Web3 are interrelated. This has the potential to disrupt the way the existing financial structures, existing financial organizations in the world are running. Although there is a big resistance from the central banks, from the governments and all, but I believe how internet has built a revolution in terms of information exchange. I believe that how when internet came first, it made the information democratic, right? The information exchange was totally free, right? Anyone sitting in a corner of the world can freely exchange information from anywhere. So I believe the financial transactions would ultimately go that way. They are going to become decentralized, although it might take some time. But I think the biggest among these is, for me, is blockchain, that I feel maybe not in the near term, but is going to revolutionize the way that we are working.
So Vivek, I want to ask this one particular question from you, being a tech guy, and I'm sure you must be getting this request. So one weird request that you have got from your client with regards to tech solutions you provide. वो बोलते हैं ना ये थोड़ा change हो सकता है या इसको थोड़ा add कर सकते हैं, something like that?
So it's not one, it's like many. So I'll not talk about like my earlier clients and all, but talking about Square Yard. So we have this tech call every week with Tanuj, Piyush, Kritika, everyone joins in, and we discuss and brainstorm a new idea. And as soon as that call finishes, Tanuj asks like, is this already implemented? When is this going to happen? So it's like we work at like we tend to work at speed of thought sometimes.
Yeah.
We are always impatient while we are discussing some idea, like we want to bring it to the light as soon as possible. But it takes some, at some point of time we are able to bring it earlier, but most of the time it takes its own sweet time. But the amount of work that our tech team has done over the past few years, it's tremendous. Hats off to them. We have close to like 25 different applications, 8 different kinds of mobile apps that we have built.
So Piyush, starting from you, these rapid questions. If you had to name 2 things that you dislike from the current Indian real estate market, what that would be?
2 things which I dislike.
Yeah.
The stalled projects, obviously. A lot of customers lose a lot of their money in that.
Yeah.
2, what I feel again, my personal opinion, although most of the country would differ from that, what I dislike is actually the plotted developments. Because I don't think as a country, the size of the country and population we have and the kind of migration we are seeing in the cities, we can actually accommodate people who would be building homes on plotted development. We actually need to build our cities vertically. We need to have massive, huge roads and vertical cities. So yeah, these are the probably two things.
And according to you, what keeps employees happy in your opinion?
I think the most important thing is sense of achievement and sense of ownership. One, I own what I'm creating. I own a piece of it. Two, whatever I'm creating, if it gives me a sense of achievement end of the day, that yes, today I've achieved something, I've created something, that's the biggest motivators. Everything else, whether it is money or all, they are secondary. These are the most important piece.
True. So, if you had to name one of your favorite leader, who would that be?
Ratan Tata would be one of them. Reading about him, how he had gone through the kind of challenges he went through when he took control of Tata, to how he has managed himself through the years, and the kind of respect Tata as a brand has got because of what he has done. I think that's one personality I really look up to.
Okay. And best advice that you have got from your mentor?
I would say tons of them. What I am today is what I've learned from my mentors over the years. One most important piece, I think, which I learned from one of my boss early on was always try to step into the other person's shoes. So whenever you are in a situation, don't just think from your own angle, get into the other person's shoes and think from that perspective. Life will become a lot more clearer. You'll be able to handle a lot more disputes or a lot more situations where there are gaps between what you want versus what you're getting. A lot of that discord will settle. So I think that's one most important piece of advice, I think, that has changed and shaped my life in a big way.
That's a great advice. And any PropTech company that has fintech solutions will lead to success, true or false?
I firmly believe you don't need to have fintech added to make a PropTech work, or for that matter, fintech angle added to any business to make that work. As in, if you're providing a service where there is a value, you're creating a value, you don't need to keep on further adding value by adding fintech. Unfortunately, that's what's happening in our country today. Is every startup, every service is eventually added by putting a loan around it in some form or shape. If there is a real value in what you are doing, people will take it irrespective of whether you are financing it or not. So that's what I believe in firmly. Yes, an addition of a fintech where there is a reasonable requirement of it, which is, let's say, a property. When you sell a property, a home loan is needed. Person don't buy a property because you are giving them a home loan. They take home loan because they bought a property. So as long as you are looking at your solutions from that perspective, the core solution has to have a reason for itself. If you just, your core solution is selling because you have added credit or fintech to it, then the moment that dries up, you will be sitting on tons of NPAs and cancelled transactions and no business practically.
Okay. And one advice that you would like to give young generation with regards to real estate investments?
Start early. Real estate adds, in my opinion, kind of brings two factors to play here. One is, I always say, it's not necessary you need to buy the home you live in. Buy a home, especially youngsters. What it would do is, appreciation, definitely, all those factors kick in, but it will bring a lot of fiscal discipline to a person. The kind of savings you are able to do, the kind of asset you are able to build with investing in real estate early, you'll never be able to do with any other asset class, because every other asset class gives you a flexibility which is good in a way, but then it doesn't help in a long term to build that base. So initially, invest in a home, you'll have no money to spend anywhere else. You'll just keep on paying your EMIs, but you'll have a home for you.
True, very true. So, which is a safer bet for a new home buyer in terms of investment? Ready to move in house, under construction house, or a branded developer?
Definitely a branded developer is what is more important. Between a ready to move or a under construction, a lot depends on what your requirement is. Look, any day in India, staying on rent is actually cheaper than buying a home. The amount of money you end up paying in EMIs, etc., you'll have less money if you pay in rent. So your decision should not be based purely on the factor that I should buy a ready to move in because I'll stop paying rent. That should not be the criteria. The criteria has to be what fits better into what my long-term need is. Real estate is an illiquid asset class. You can't buy a home and 3 years later sell it and buy something else. So you are buying it for your next 10 years. If you are able to stretch your budget by going in under construction and take a slightly bigger house, you're better off, because let's say if it's a double income family, no kid, today you don't need probably the third room. You're okay with a 2-bedroom, but then you'll have kids, you'll probably need a third room. If moving from ready to move in versus under construction helps you get to a 3 BHK instead of 2 BHK, go for it. It would be your best decision when you look at your life 10 years hence, because you know you had that extra room, and third year, fourth year, you're not looking to change the house. So decision has to be more from that perspective. And as long as you've got a strong, branded, credible developer, the delivery risk is kind of taken care, so it doesn't matter much.